All right, welcome. Thanks for joining. Going to make this my very first stream on YouTube and going to be building a small little app to demonstrate some things you can use the OpenWeather API for. I'm going to be using Bootstrap to build this, and we're going to dive right in. The endpoint I'll be using is the forecast data endpoint for the 3 to 5 day or the 5-day 3-hour forecast from OpenWeather. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. I'm going to open Chrome here. And let's go ahead and jump in and look for OpenWeather. OpenWeather Map API. I'm going to be using the 5-day 3-hour forecast. You will be needing your own API key, as I will be using a temporary key, which I'm going to be removing after this demonstration. But basically, the data that this will give you is 5 days worth of forecast data at 3-hour intervals. And then I'm also going to show how you can use this data to get the weather icons for the current conditions or the forecast conditions from OpenWeather as well. All right, I'm going to do something I usually never do, which is build a web page without a wireframe up front, which is kind of free form it, which I don't recommend doing. Usually it takes a lot longer to build a web page if you don't have a clear target, even if it's just a little hand sketch diagram. But we're going to be using Bootstrap, and I'm just going to be using a simple Jumbotron and a table. So I feel comfortable doing this without really much of a plan. So to get going, first step, going to be building some static HTML just to get an idea of what I want things to look like. Then I'll start hooking up the JavaScript portion of things, including the call to the OpenWeather API. We're going to have put a little input so that way a city can be searched for, and then a 5-day forecast for that city be displayed in the table below. So let's get started. Step one is going to be getting the initial HTML up and running. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. We're going to call this one OpenWeather API Demo. I'm going to open that with code. And since I am kind of coding without a plan here, I'm definitely going to use Git in case I need to roll back a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do that now with Git init. And let's get some HTML up and running. So I'm using VS Code. I'll be using a couple of extensions for this. I use the Prettier extension to get code formatting for a number of different file types, including HTML, JavaScript, CSS. And then I also like to use Code Spell Checker, Bracket Pair Colorizer, and Live Server. So these are all extensions you can get for free for your VS Code. So this is Live Server by Rick Day. I use Prettier Code Formatter. Code Spell Checker. I try to spell check my code, including my variable names. It just leads to fewer hard to spot bugs. And then Bracket Pair Colorizer 2 is really nice. It helps create colors so you can match up opening and closing parentheses, curly braces, brackets, etc. I have a number of other extensions, but those are the main ones you want to get if you're going to be following along. So let's get back to it. Let's give our document a title. We're going to call this OpenWeather API Demo. Going to then be adding in Bootstrap. So I'm going to go back to my web browser here and add in Bootstrap. If we go to Get Started, I can get the link to the CDN for the CSS. I don't think I'll be needing any of Bootstrap's JavaScript, at least not yet. So I'm going to skip that. And then I'm going to create a Jumbotron. So let's just go grab the Jumbotron example from the Bootstrap documentation here. And we'll go ahead and right click on my index.html to open with live server. See how that looks. Okay, great. So far so good. And we'll squish it down. Want this to look usable on a mobile screen. There we go. Do something like this. Yep, that's fair. Okay. I'm going to call this weather forecast. And then give a little description here in our Jumbotron. Call this search for over 200,000. Search for a weather forecast of over 200,000 cities. There we go. Helps if you spell weather right. All right, weather forecast. Yep, I'm good with that. Display 4 might be a little bit big. Let's see how display 2 looks. Okay, display 4, definitely. It's almost still too big. Maybe I want to get rid of that entirely. Yeah, that's better. Okay, great. Now I'm going to add an HR tag. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to put in some semantic elements here. I'm going to call this header. And below that, we'll go ahead and put in an HR and a form. I won't be using a form action. It's going to stay all client-side JavaScript. And then in the form, we just need one input and a submit button. So I'm going to go to Bootstrap here again and look for form. And this is going to allow me to just quickly copy and paste some basic form controls. Grab a form group here with an email input. Let's go ahead and change that input type to text. Change the ID to city input. And we'll update the placeholder to Ergo San Diego. See how that looks. All right, so far so good. Got an input, it says enter a city. Just need a button to submit the form. So go grab a Bootstrap button. And some of this stuff I do have memorized, but just to kind of show off if you're beginning, how you can look up and quickly get things going with Bootstrap. This is what I want, a block level button, spans all the way across. Nice and big to go along with our big Jumbotron, just going big with everything. And instead of a type button, I'm going to make this a type submit because eventually I want the enter button to be able to submit the search. Get forecast. And let's take a look and see how our website is doing. Cool. The big font kind of feels overpowering next to just my one input here, so I'm going to get rid of the BTN large. See how that does. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, great. Yeah, not the prettiest layout in the world. It's not really the goal of this demonstration. I'm just trying to get something up quickly. Let's see how this looks as it scales to mobile. It's kind of obnoxiously large here. I think I'm going to set a limit on how wide this can go by setting a style equals Let's make this, I don't know, max width 30 rem, and then in Bootstrap you can center with a MX auto. I think that ought to, okay, 30 rems, oh, that was 3 rem, I meant to do 30. And again, rem units are relative, or root ems, so it's relative to the font size of the root of the document. Yeah, it looks good. So now we have a max width. Perfect. Okay. Next part is we're going to make I'm going to make a table with fixed data just to get the layout nailed. That's going to be below the Jumbotron. So I'm going to make another container below. And then in that container, let's put a section tag. Actually, the container could be a section tag. Let's just do that. And make a row. And above the row, make a header. H2 of 5-day, or actually just forecast San Diego forecast. I want to make sure I display the name of the city. Okay, a little bigger than I like, so I'm going to use Bootstrap to override this style to look a little bit smaller. See how an H4 looks. Yeah, that looks good. Excellent. Okay, so now below, I'm going to put a table. Might not even need a row here. Just put a table in and see how it looks. Oh, but I want to make it responsive, and that's going to need a div. So I'm going to use emit here and say table-responsive. To make a responsive table in Bootstrap, you want to take a table element and wrap it inside a div with the class of table responsive. And then if we look at Bootstrap here, we'll just kind of start with the default table and then maybe add some styles to it. So we're going to put a T head, a T body. T head is going to have a TR. And let's see, I'm going to show the date. I guess we need a time. And then condition. Now condition is going to span 2 columns because there's a condition icon and a description in our weather data. So I'm going to give this a call span of 2. Right, if we go to the OpenWeather Map API here, and I've used this before, so I'm already kind of familiar with it, but let's go down to parameters of response and just get a look at the response data. And what I'm going to be doing for each row in my table is we got a DT, which gives me a date timestamp. That's going to allow me to show both the date and the time in 2 separate columns for each forecast. I might even just do it in 1 column. We'll see when I get there. And then we're going to have the icon and main description for the weather. I might even do regular description. But I'm going to put 1 in each column is the goal. Might as well be building my first row out while I do this. TD. And for a date, today is the 20th of September. Oops, hit numlock. There we go. Time for our first forecast. I guess it's time to get a fake forecast up for San Diego, I guess. Or I'll just use the example from here. How about that? I have no idea what this time is for. Take the timestamp, copy that, and if I scroll down here, it's going to give some information about So this is the time in as a Unix timestamp. So I'm going to convert that Unix timestamp converter. Handy little tool. Now I can convert that and see that this is 1/7/2020. So I might as well convert that. I'm in the United States and we do the month before the date, unlike Europe. Or at least I think it's unlike Europe. And that's for 3 p.m. So it's at 3 p.m. UTC. My time zone would be 7 hours behind that. So that's going to be, let's see, subtract 3 to get us to noon, and 4 from noon is 8 in the morning. So time 8 a.m. I think we'll use 24-hour time, or AM, PM, 12-hour time clock to represent things. Let's see how this is looking so far. We got date, time to do condition, and that's going to be 2 columns. So the condition is, so I guess I should say London forecasts. And now I don't need to convert because I've decided to call it London. Call that 3 p.m. And description is overcast clouds. And I'll probably do the verbal condition second and the icon first. Okay, so the icon, we're going to need an image. I'm going to need an image for that. And then look for information on how to do icons. So each icon gets an ID. So here we have an ID of O4D. And then there's the way you add icons using OpenWeather's icons is if you go down, just keep searching for icons. Here it is, weather condition codes. I'm going to open that up in a new tab. And when we get results back on a number of endpoints, the weather conditions are represented as an object. Each one has an ID, a main description, a more detailed description, and then an icon identifier. And to grab these icons, you need to create a URL. So I'm going to copy this link address, drop that into the SRC. I want to give this an alt description accordingly. And then here is 10D for day or 10N for night. Those are the 2 icons. The D and the N represent night or day. And you can optionally add this at 2x to get a scaled example. Let's see what this looks like. I'm not sure what all scales are available. I wonder if it's documented here anywhere. Does not appear to have any scaling info. The word scale doesn't show up. So I really don't know what's available. I know I can do it without the at and get one size, and then the 2x gets me one that's bigger. Going back to the work here, if I inspect, look at this image, it's 50 by 50 pixels, and then let's see what at 2x is. Now if I inspect, it's 100 pixels. So I think for my little table, 50 pixels is just fine. That might even be bigger than I want. Okay, great. So I've got the condition. I want to also show the temperature. So add another TH, we'll call it temp. Go down and add another TD. Going back to the example data here. I know all temperatures come in Kelvin with this API by default, but you can a parameter can be added. Let me search for units. So a units format can be added to get imperial. In fact, I'm going to open that up and use that as my example. So here on main, we got temp of, chilly, 7 degrees. 7, and then an HTML entity for the degree symbol, and then Fahrenheit, I think, is what we'll put in the table. See how that's looking? There it is, 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Add in humidity. I wonder if there's like a shorthand way. So that's an awful lot of text for a column that's going to just have a percentage. I don't know. HUM period. Does that even make sense? Oops, put that in the wrong spot. It should be a TH. There we go. And let's see what the fake data says. Fake data, what do you say? 81%. Ooh, that's humid. I live in the eastern parts of San Diego County, and it is seldom, if ever, that humid here. It's a very dry place to live, which is kind of nice. I like it. All right. 81%. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and show some data about the wind speed. There's a lot of data we could dig into if I wanted. There's wind speed, wind direction, rain, snow, cloud coverage. Looks like there's extra detail here on the weather. It's mist and light intensified drizzle. Both have icons, so there's all kinds of things that could be done with this. I'm usually just going to go with the first one on deck in the search results, Ooh, this is current weather. I don't want that. Am I on the right endpoint here? 5-day weather. Let's see what's going on. Oh, I see. I was on the units example, and that uses a different endpoint. So going back to the original example, I guess. Make sure I use the matching icon since I just changed the weather again. There we go. Overcast clouds. O4D. Temperature. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. I'm going to convert it. Convert Kelvin to Fahrenheit. .53 degrees. I'll definitely be rounding. And what's the humidity? 90. Oh. Okay. Looking good. Just wind speed next. So for wind, add another TH for wind. Going to stack. We're going to do wind speed and direction. So first I'll show the speed in miles per hour, because that's what you get when you use the units in imperial on requests. Not sure what the default wind mile speed is given in. Let's go down and look. Wind speed, default is meters a second. So I want to convert meters a second to miles per hour. It's 11.6. MPH, put a line break in, and then for our wind direction, see the wind direction was, find it, degrees to 11. And use the HTML entity for the degree symbol again. See how we're looking? There it is. How does it smoosh? Oof. Not well. Tables and mobile responsiveness. Never so great, but could just take some data out. What if I made condition just the icon? Tempting. Or stack date and time. Do that. Date time. Like so. Probably should be using a time element. But I want to keep this short, so I'm not going to. Still got a ways to stack. I said MPG, not MPH. That's funny. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think the only way to make this really squish down is to get rid of the textual description. It'll still be there for screen readers. It'll still be there for screen readers in the alt. I'm not going to take the time. If I were really to build this out for end use, I'd probably make like a tooltip so you could at least get the description when you hovered, and then maybe show it on a wider screen, make it responsive. But I don't want to get that deep into styling. I just want to get to working with the API. So, oops, I didn't mean to delete that. I think I'm just going to get rid of the description column. And now this is no longer spanning 2 columns. All right. Yes, it still scrolls. Close enough. I'm fine with that. You know? Users can always rotate the phone. Show device frame, no. Show rulers, device type. No, I don't want device type. Show me. Do I just have to make it wider? There it is. Yeah. All right. And I believe the forecast is going to be in 3-hour increments. So there's going to be a lot of rows. I'm just going to put a couple in here just to get a good feel for the preview. So we'll paste a few rows in. All right. I think, oh, you know what? I think a table small, maybe? I think Bootstrap has a table small class. Let's go to table. Where's the little, Bootstrap usually has a sub menu. Layout is not being very nice on Bootstrap right now. Got to go wider, and then you get the subheadings. So useful. Okay. Small table. See if that made any difference. Let's go side by side. Undo, save. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's good. See what it looks like back in portrait now. Hey, it smooshes all the way now on a pretty narrow screen, 360 pixels. Not the narrowest, but it's darn close. Let's see, iPhone 6, 7, and 8. Yeah, this looks good. I'm happy with this. I'm pleased. Okay, so we got the basic layout done in HTML. I think the next step is creating maybe just hard code. So I think the next step is just handling the form submit, getting the city to search for, and then hooking up maybe just logging the AJAX response. And then once I have that, finally dynamically creating the table. I think that's the game plan. All right. So continuing on, next step, time to hook up some JavaScript. I'm going to make a file called app.js, and going to link app.js at the bottom of the body. The script, and using emit there, script : src gives you a script tag with an src attribute. I'll link up my app. Just do a quick sanity check here and alert hello. Make sure that pops up. Did I close my? I did. You know what? All right. Open in live server. There you are. Hello. Yes. Good. You know what? I like to keep my development tab kind of separate from tabs I have open for just researching. Okay. So, first thing we want to do is attach form submit listener. Define a function for handling form submit. Get value of the input. Prevent default behavior. Get the value of the input. Trim white space. Validate input. And then for now, I think just alert city abort if input is valid. Alert city or alert input value. Yes, I think that's what we're going to do. All right, so to make selecting the form easier, I mean, obviously there's one form on this page, so I could just grab form elements, but it's generally not how I roll. Go find my form by hitting Control F, and let's give it an ID. So I'll call this forecast search form. I like to be verbose with my IDs, just to remind me everything's purpose is crystal clear that way. So, I'm going to be using jQuery for this. Failed to mention that at the beginning of the stream. But I'm going to use jQuery from a CDN. Minified version. The minified version includes AJAX, which is what I'm going to be using here. I know, Fetch API is really cool, but I wanted this tutorial to be suited to students that I work with, and I do include a section on jQuery and AJAX, and so I want this to be using jQuery and AJAX. Go ahead and scroll down and link jQuery down here at the bottom of things. Perfect. Make sure I'm not seeing any errors pop up in the console. Nope. All right. Go back and get my form ID now. I believe I called it weather search form. You can quickly switch between files in VS Code, by the way, if you hit Control P, and then you can start typing the name of the file until you have it, and that just quickly switches to that file in the editor. There we go. We get our forecast form. Call on, submit, because I want both clicks and pressing enter to work here. Going to be accepting the function handle events. All right, and now it's time to add code to handle form submit. And also defensively, I should actually put all of this in jQuery. And that's just going to mean all my variables aren't in the global scope. They're going to be wrapped in this function. And B, my function will wait until the DOM is finished loading in before I start attaching event listeners. All right, so far so good. We'll go ahead and call event.prevent default. And it looks like my indentation is set to 4 spaces, but Prettier uses 2, so I'm going to override that. There we go. And just a quick sanity check. Form submitted. We'll just alert. Press enter. Says form submitted. Beautiful. Okay. Next up, so we default behavior is prevented. Get value of the input is up next. Going back to index.html to make that easy by giving the input an ID, which I think I actually already gave it an ID of city input if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Go ahead and copy that. Go back to app.js. And I'm going to want to clear the input too. So what I'm going to do, in fact, I'm going to type that in. Alert, put value, and clear input value. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a variable so I don't query the DOM twice. I'm going to say var city input. And then going to get the value var city equals city input dot val is the jQuery function that gets the value. Trim the white space. And my validation is going to be pretty lame right now. I'm just going to make sure that the user has typed something in. So I'm going to say if city dot length. Actually, we'll just do not equal. It's not equal to an empty string. Then it's valid. So I'll alert city and take city input.val and empty it. Else, for now, just do nothing. I mean, better UI, or we'll just put a to do, but that I'm never going to do. Not in this stream anyway, would be to do display validation error. So we'd want to add some code to display some kind of form validation error. All right, let's test out our form input. Search for London, press enter, we get London. Try pressing the button 2. Click on that, it says London. Great. So far so good. We managed to get the city name. I think it's definitely time to make a commit. I probably should have made one after the initial HTML too. It's my habit. We'll go ahead and git add and then git commit message, initial HTML, and alert city input. There we go. And type exit to close the terminal. All right, we're doing great. Take a quick stretch. Probably should make sure my mic is still recording. Check, check. Microphone check. Yep, microphone's still live. Good. All right, continuing on. Check the stream too. Make sure the stream's still going. Looks like it is. Dropped a few frames near the beginning. Otherwise, everything's been great. Okay, super. Alrighty, so looking at the app now, I think we're alerting City. So the next step, I think, would be setting up a request to the OpenWeather API forecast endpoint and logging the data in the console. All right. So what I'm going to do now, I don't need that comment. Clean up a few comments here. I think. Oops, I got rid of my to-do. Why did I get rid of my to-do? To-do, handle error, input validation error. To-do, better validation needed, only checking for empty input. Only checks. And then I use another extension called rewrap, which I love because I hate comments that go on and on and on, and I don't like to use code wrap when I'm in my code. And rewrap is an extension for VS Code. It's by STKB, and it gives you a shortcut for wrapping your comment line. So all I got to do is hit Alt Q, and my code will rewrap. Looks like it's not long enough, so just to show it off, I'll type in a bunch more in here. We'll break it up to make it wordish. All right, now rewrap, Alt Q, and it wraps my comments. Pretty cool, right? All right, let's get rid of all that junk. And hide the files. Great. All right, so back to the AJAX request. What I'm going to do is write this in a separate function, since I think that'll just make things more clear. And each time I'm going to be searching for a city, pretty much everything else will remain the same. So what I'm going to do is write a function up here. We'll call this function fetch city forecast. It's going to take a city as a parameter and display it eventually. All right, so instead of alerting, go ahead and call fetch city forecast and pass it the city. And then a couple of things need to go on here. First, just to make it easy to configure, I'm going to make a var API or OpenWeather API key variable. And I'm going to go grab my OpenWeather API key. Do that off screen, because I want to show some of my other API keys. Again, I'm using a temp key, temporary weather API key for this demo. I will be deleting it afterwards, so I wouldn't bother trying to use it. So there's my API key. Oops, hit the copy button. Let's paste that in. Add a semicolon to the end. There we go. All right, going back to the documentation, scroll up. I need app ID as the parameter, and this is the URL for the API call. In fact, Let's go up here and where is it at? There it is. Forecast question mark. Wait, I don't want it by city ID. I want it by city name. Thank you. Copy link address. Var URL. There we go. And now I can concatenate my app ID onto the end. OpenWeather API key. There we go. And then the other part, actually for now, just leave it. No, I don't want to leave it. Q is going to be equal to, oops, that mode says XML. Certainly don't want that. And then I'm going to go ahead and, instead of making a long, hard to read one-liner, I'm just going to concatenate each key separately to make it easy to read. So we're going to say Q equals, and actually needs to be leading with an ampersand as well. And that's going to be where city goes. And then I'm going to also add the units parameter. Units equals imperial. I think that about does it. Just console.log the URL. See if it works. So going back here, I'll try London GB. And I'm going to click that to see if it works. Yeah, there we go. Try another city. How about San Diego? Press enter. Test that URL out as well. Yep, gets data. They're both working. This is great. It's fantastic. Getting good URLs. I love it when it just comes together with no fuss. All right, next step is to make our AJAX with jQuery. So jQuery has so many ways to do the same thing with AJAX. So I'm going to say $.ajax to call the AJAX function. I'm going to specify a URL. Set it to my URL parameter. Some of you that are already used to ES6 probably know that I could just say URL comma here. I'm just going to spell it all out for now to make it abundantly clear for anybody who's a beginner or unfamiliar with some of the extra ES6 syntax features. And go ahead and say method of get. And then jQuery uses uses its own promise interface. So you can use .then, but if you check the docs, there's definitely a preference to call .done. So that's what I'm going to do here. And jQuery provides the data when it's JSON data as an object already. So I'm just going to console log data right here. And now I'm going to go check it out in the browser. So try San Diego out. Uh-oh, got an error. All right, so it got blocked by cores. Oh, right, because the URL I copied was HTTP. I want to do pretty sure OpenWeather map. Oh, look at that. It hit me with a samples URL. Gotta get the right URL. There we go. Try that on for size. That's better. Go back to my console and make sure that's working. Which we have a problem, it looks like. So I got a 404 not found error searching for San Diego. What? Q equals San Diego. Oh, I forgot an ampersand. Try that again. I think I just had a typo. Try that one more time. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that obviously shows that I need to be handling errors somehow. For now, I'm going to put a dot. You know, I can't honestly remember how jQuery handles errors with AJAX in the latest version. I think it's dot catch, just like a regular promise, but I'm not sure. Go find out right now. Take me to the documentation, please. API documentation. AJAX. Dot done. I want to know what's the dot catch. Is it dot error? You want me using your promises, jQuery? I think it's just dot catch. Deferred done. No, it's fail. It's fail. So it's dot fail. And then what gets passed to dot fail? So the request object and the text status and the error. All right, there we go. It's console.log text status. The bottom and purposefully misfire here. All right, so I get not found error. I'm going to leave error thrown alone and just say, we're now going to alert to do display not found message using something other than an alert. It's not really good practice to use alerts, in my opinion, in end products, but goal here is just focusing, trying to stay focused on how you can use OpenWeather API. Okay, so I'm just going to alert if, and instead of JQXHR, I'm just going to say request object. So if request.status is 404, which is a not found, just alert, the message could not find forecast for, and then city. Else alert unable to reach weather service. Try again later. So any other error, just say that. Okay. I guess I'll console log the text status. No, leave it out. There. Error handling, done. Great, so when we have a working request, I get the goods. City, and a bunch of forecast data. Cool. So I guess I'm on the last step now, which is displaying all this data when it comes in. Actually, what I think I want to do is show a a loader, but not below. I think what I want to do is show the loader in the button. No, stay focused. So normally I think it would be a nice effect to, while the request is pending, maybe disable the form submit button. So that way user can't trigger two requests really quickly. Heck, gonna do it really quick. Why not? So the steps here are display loader and disable submit button in the form. And then down below, we need to enable submit button in form, hide loader. Perfect. All right, so that means I'm going to make the submit button easier to target. Going to go find it and give it an ID. City or forecast button. I think get forecast button. Yeah, that's a good name for it. There we go. Now I can go back to my JavaScript file, and since I'm going to be referencing, actually I'm just going to make two functions for that. I'm going to make a function to function request or disable. I'll just say request pending will be the name of the function. There we go. Perfect. So request pending is going to get that button, and I want to add, first we'll set an attribute of disabled true. Function request received. You know, those are more action names. I'm just going to call it I'm just going to do it in line for now. I might move those into a function later. Okay, and take that and undo it down here. Disabled false. See how that goes. Disabled true, disabled false. Didn't really see it. Let's go to network and throttle it. Try Las Vegas. There, we can see that it turned gray. And then Bootstrap has a spinner that I can use. Bunch of different spinners. Just looking to see if there's an example with the button. There is. Let's see. Right. Go drop that in the button. Where did that button go? Hit Alt Shift F. see what's going on with that button right now. So there's the spinner. And I probably want it to have some text. Do they have an example with text? There is an example with text. Okay, so it's just changing the content, the text content from loading to get forecast. So I'm just going to use a hide class on there to make sure it's not shown at first. Oops. Maybe it's hidden. I thought it was hide. Maybe it's hidden. You know what? I'll just put that on my JavaScript. Function. Render spinner. Turn. All of that. Easy button dictates that I do this. And since I'm going to update the text to say fetching forecast, so var span, or we'll call it spinner. Span. Class. So using the attribute method here to give it a role. And area hidden. Perfect. Turn spinner. All right, render spinner. Perfect. Okay, so disabled true dot text. I'm gonna set that to loading weather, loading forecast, and going to append render spinner. Okay, perfect. And then hiding that spinner. Basically take all this again and plot that here. Disabled false. Change that to get forecast and just call dot empty first to get rid of the spinner. There. That ought to work. Give it a roll. Should still be on fast 3G, which will give us a little glimpse at what it's going to look like. Let's go to slow, get a longer look at it. There we go. Let's put the spinner before it, I think. Let's move that up. Move that to the end. Oh, that didn't work. You know what? How did Bootstrap want me to make that accessible? I think I'm just going to leave the spinner. So I need to render 2 spans. I'm going to change render spinner to append spinner. There. There we go. So there's the spinner, our screen reader text. It's going to be another span. Dot text. I'm going to say loading weather forecast. There. And then I don't need to return anything now because this has side effects. I'm just going to call parent.append spinner screen reader text. Okay. See how that runs. Bishop. Go. Not running. Uncaught reference area. Render spinner. Right, I changed it to append spinner. Get forecast button. And now I can just take the get forecast button, empty it. Perfect. Okay. Gotta remember to set the attribute of disabled true. All right, let's see here. I get the spinner or the button, sets attribute of disabled true, pass that in as the parent for spinner, and then when we get a response, I need to empty the button, disabled false, and set its text back to get forecast. Perfect. Perfect. See how that works. Oh, I need to get rid of the text here too, so let's go ahead and empty it. Perfect. Okay, try that again. Oops. All good except for the part where it shows that span, which I thought was supposed to be hidden. Hello? SR only shouldn't be visible unless I'm still setting text somewhere. Ah, I forgot to set the class. That should be SR only, I think. Yep. Glad I checked. Format my code. Try that one more time. Hey, there we go. Okay, that's enough fiddling around with that spinner. Let's move on. All right. Back to work. Getting really close, actually. So, and the next step is getting the city name in there. I'm going to go ahead and add code to do that down here. You know what? I'm just going to make a show loader, hide loader function. So function show loader Just does all this. And all this. Empty, and then just call append. Yes, I like that much better. So we create a spinner, some screen reader text, disable the button, empty it, and append. Beautiful. Don't need this function anymore. Instead, we're just going to call show loader and then hide loader. It's going to reverse the process. So attribute false, empty, and then text get forecast. All right, just verify that change worked out okay, which it didn't, naturally. Said I was done, and now I've got an error, presumably. No, it worked, just needed to wait. Very good, okay. I don't need the throttle anymore on the network now that we've got that logic figured out. Let's go put it back to online. Back to the console. Probably should make a commit here, I think, before moving on. Yeah. What's my message? What's my message? Oh, I forgot to call hide loader. Dang it. Hide loader. Try that one more time, please. All right, good. Saw it flash for a moment. That's enough for me. All right. Git add dot git commit. Make request for forecast and log results. Okay. All right. Committed that to Git. All right, I think we're on the home stretch finally. Okay. Rather than put a bunch of code in here, I think I'm just going to call render forecast table and pass in the data. And I guess I'll leave the, oh, actually I'll console log it. Actually, you know what I like to do? Ah, screw it. Let's go ahead and just do render forecast. It's going to get the data. Bring back my console log so I can reference it. All right, so first step of rendering forecast is the name of the city. Couple ways to do this. I think the easiest way, I thought Bootstrap had a, was it dnone? Dnone. Yeah, dnone, perfect. Okay. So that's going to allow me to, instead of render all this HTML dynamically, I can just put a span here around the city name. Now I can just target that span to set the city name. Actually, I'm just going to make h2 here. ID equals city name. Don't think I used an ID of city name elsewhere. Let's just make sure. Yep. So going back to the code. City name dot text equals data dot log that. Go back to the documentation here. How do I get the city name? So I'll need to check, make sure, yep, mic's still working, good. Goes out sometimes. So it's going to be data.city.name. And when all said and done, I can just call show on, oops, probably need to give that ID forecast results. Dot remove class d none. That's the Bootstrap class that adds a display none. So just test that out here with Mammoth Lake's my favorite place on the planet. Oh no, render forecast table is not defined. That's not a good name for it because I need to render more than the table. There we go. Let's try that again. Beautiful. Yes, there's Mammoth Lakes, shows the city name. Moving on. Looks like it's time to build this table out, right? So, first step, grab the table, or create, so I guess for each forecast entry, need to create TDs for the date, time, condition, temp, humidity, and wind. Create a TR and append the TDs. Then append TR to the T-body. All right. Very good. So for loop here. So a bunch of ways. I'm going to stick to the old school way of doing this and just use for var I equals 0. I is less than the length of our array, which is data dot. Going back to the docs. Data dot list. And then I plus equals 1. I'm not a fan of plus plus. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and make a temp variable to hold each forecast. So I'm going to call it var and call it forecast entry. And now I can just say forecast entry equals data dot list bracket I. Great. And now I can take that forecast entry and start displaying things. So the first step is going to be getting the date. So I'm going to take the timestamp and I need to convert that timestamp to, so there's a couple things. Easiest, let's see how much work it is to do this without using something like Moment.js. It'll keep the package size small, but it's kind of a pain. I got my date timestamp. I need to multiply that by 1,000 since JavaScript likes milliseconds. So I'm going to call this var date or TS, and that's going to equal data dot, or not data list, forecast entry dot dt times 1,000. So that's my timestamp. Now I want to get a date, new date from our TS, and then need the month. Var month equals date dot get month, which is 0-based index, so I need to add 1 to it. And then I need a day, so var day equals date.get. Is it day? I can never remember this. I think it's just get date. I think get date gives me the day of the month starting from 1, I hope. Easy way to check that. Var date equals new date. So it's the 20th, so if I do date.getDate. Yep, correct. All right, so now I got the month and the day, and now I can show that as, I guess I'll make my new var date cell equals td tag, and then the text is going to be month plus slash plus day. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish down to the bottom with the first cell. So I'm going to go ahead and say var row equals I'm going to make a new table row like so. tr append date cell dot append to, and then let's put an ID on the t body. ID equals forecast table body. ID forecast table body. Yeah. Make a new R, new table row. We only have one cell. And go. Don't need the mobile display anymore. Something's amiss here. Okay, so I set the city name. Oh, I never showed it. Forecast. No, I did show it. Why is it not? Are we getting in our loop? Console.log forecast entry. Seems like the loop's not happening. Render forecast, pass it data. Console log the data. I equals 0, I is less than data dot list. Does data have a list? Data dot, it does. Why am I not seeing a console log? Here, that's the real question. That's super funny. In a not ha-ha sort of way. Hide loader, render forecast. Where's that console log coming from? App.js line 27. Set the text. Create my variable. Here's the loop. tr append date cell append to forecast table body. Did I not save my HTML? Truly seems like it's not working. What happens if I empty? All right, try another approach here. Var tbody equals that. Select it with jQuery. Var tr equals append. And then take tbody.append tr. Oops, if I don't misspell append. It truly and honestly seems like I'm going to empty this. It's as though, oh, I said data.list. Aha! Was my conditional all along. Alrighty then. Silly me. And there's all my console logs. Okay, and there's the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful date. Cool. Time to get the time working now. Time to get the time working. That's a big mess for date and time. I think I'm going to go the rest of the way and maybe just make a separate little function to clean up the mess for calculating a date. I think that's going to be the idea here. Okay, so my date cell needs a lot of stuff. I think the time was supposed to be wrapped below it. So I'm going to change this to HTML so that way I can... Actually, I'm going to change it to .append. So that way I can put text a BR tag and then some more text. So var, I'm just going to call it time. Date, get hour, get hours. I'm going to call this hours. Or actually just get, yeah, there we go. Get hours plus colon plus date.get minutes. And what else do I need here? Get hours, get minutes. Or maybe this is a job for get local time. So I think it is. Get local, or to local time string, .to local time string. Let's see what that does. Just plop that in. Can I format to local time string? I would have been done by now if I used moment. To local time string. Yeah, I'm going back to how I was doing it, piecemeal. Date, get hours. Get minutes. Oh, but dang it. So var hours equals date dot get hours. Var minutes, or minute equals date dot get minute. And then if minutes, or just while minutes dot length is less than 2. Actually, that doesn't matter, does it? We'll just say if minutes dot length is equal to, or just say less than 2, minutes equals 0 plus minutes. There we go. Put a 0 in front of the minutes if they are less than 10. Oh, minutes doesn't have a length. It's a number. So I can just say minutes less than 10, like so. Add a 0 to it. Perfect. Okay. Now I don't need time here. Instead, oops, I used data instead of date. Let's say date. Okay. Shoot, just console log date for me. And I'm going to say hour plus colon plus minutes in there. And then I need an AM or PM check. Is there an AM or PM function? I don't think there is. Local time string has it. I guess I just have to do a less than or greater than 12. So var AM PM equals, or var time, how about that? Var time equals there we go. And then if hours, pardon me, is less than 12, time plus equals space AM, else time plus equals space PM. There we go. Get the time. Don't need to console log the date. I'm sure it's fine now. Double check our work. Oh, that's right. Hours is not a 12 base time. So I need to, let's see, hours. Modulo 12, I think, ought to do it. Only problem I think is midnight will be 0. So I suppose, oy, oy, oy. You know what? Time plus equals colon plus minutes and time. I'm going to start off as a string. And then if hours equals 0, time equals 12, or I guess plus equals, else time plus equals hours modulo 12. Don't need that. Yep, that ought to get it working now. I believe that ought to do it. Try this again. All right. Times are looking good now. I should probably verify these timestamps though. So I'm going to grab one of these Unix timestamps. Go open a time converter. Unix to AM PM. Google, is that enough? Nope. Convert Unix time. So UTC time would be 12 a.m., which would make it, let's see, 7 hours back, 5 p.m., and that's what I'm seeing. So that's good. I think the problem we're going to run into, though, is do I want the time in the area code of the destination location or the user's, the client location, right? Let's do New York to prove my point. Yeah, exactly. Now it's no longer correct. That's the same Unix time, but in New York it would be, I think, -4. This should be 8 p.m., I believe. So, how to deal with that? First off, I think this big mess for rendering the date can be moved into its own function. I'm going to call it function render time, and I will pass in a date. Yes. Yes, that will work. So for render time, I just need hours, minutes. Yeah, that whole mess. Goodbye. Whole mess can be gone. And change this variable name to results. So I'm going to use rename symbol. It's a nice command. And I'm going to rename that to results and return it. And now I can simply call render time inline. Abstract all that code to render time away. Except for I forgot to pass the date. Yep, there we go. Okay. Time zone. Is there a way to get the time zone of the location from OpenWeather Map? I sure hope so. City. So there's a time zone. Okay. Go back to my console here and see what the data gave me. Ah, looks like it's an offset in seconds. Ooh, that makes life super easy. So I think I just need to pass a second parameter to my render time function of offset. Offset's kind of weird. I'll say TZ offset to remind me that it's a time zone offset. And our time zone offset is at, give me an error, but I'm okay with that. Wonder if it's even in the weather object. Doesn't appear that way. Yeah, so it's going to be .city .time zone. Data.city .time zone. Oh, but you know what? I should just pass the timestamp in instead and update this whole function. I wonder, JavaScript, can I change the time zone of a data object? Seems like I should be able to. Set Oh, there's my issue when I'm making the date. Is that my issue? No, that's not my issue. I need to figure out how do I just got to do the math. Time zone offset. Is there a set time zone offset? Set. Okay. JavaScript. date, set, time zone, offset. Lame. Yeah, I'm just going to do math on the timestamp. All right, so I'm going to pass TS in. Actually, if I just take forecast entry DT, no, now I'm overthinking it. Time zone times 1000. That's what we're going to do. And then just come down here. And this is going to be TS and TZ offset. Perfect. So for hours, I just need to take TS modulo. How many hours is that? A lot. Dear God, this would be so much easier. Okay, that's it. I'm using moment. This would be done ages ago. I should have just used it in the first place. I think they have a new package that's even smaller too. Docs, project status. There's a new package out. Where is it at? Recommendations, day.js, there it is. There's CDN for day.js. And there it is, perfect. I'm gonna go plug in day.js. There. Using the script tag actually gives me the integrity. Check. Let's see if that's loading in successfully, which it is. Okay, going back to day.js. I may have the same issue because of time zones though. Ooh, this is ugly. You know what? I'm gonna deal with that later. Or actually, I'm gonna deal with it not at all because that's not really the focus of this whole exercise. But I just don't want this video to keep taking as much time as it is. So our render date is not gonna offset for time zone, I think is the plan here. Yep. Gonna leave it as is. Date. Go back to passing date in, and there we go. Cool. Make sure it works. Works. It's gonna be the wrong time zone. It's gonna be in the user's time zone, which is not ideal. Really should be converted. I'm gonna add a to-do. to do adjust times to location to city target city time zone using aha. Okay, great. Moving on. Got the time. Next up was the current condition. I'm going to go show my look at. Okay, so next up is a TD with the image element. So we've got to build that. Make another function for render date. Actually, I'm just going to call it render date time and add the rest of this in. Go back to calling this result and starting with that. And the BR. Perfect. If I go down here, you just call render date time and pass it TS, I think. Yeah. Pass it that, actually. Pass it a date, or I guess a TS. Great. I'm going to pass it a timestamp. So where'd that go? Render date. Render date time. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Render date time. That's going to be TS. Perfect. Yes. Yes. Double check. Nope. Hours is not defined. App.js line 32. What did I do? Var hours equals get date.get hours. Var minutes equals date.get minutes. Perfect. Back on the road again. All right. Back to building our icon. So that was going to be an image element in a TD. Call this var image cell or icon cell. Weather icon cell equals TD dot HTML paste. All right, so I'm going to build that separate. So we're going to say var weather icon image dot adder And the source needs to come from our forecast entry. And each forecast entry has a weather array. Yeah, weather. Weather. Just going to use the first one. I don't think main has, yeah, it's always going to be in this weather array. And I need to build the URL, which is going to be this string, concatenated to the ID, concatenated to .png. And give it an alt attribute equal to forecast entry .weather 0 dot, oops, that should be .icon, I think. .description. Okay, great. Weather icon image. And now instead of HTML, we'll just call append weather icon image. Gets appended to the TD, and now we can add that in weather icon cell here. There we go. We're getting some weather icons. Excellent. Let's make sure the alt is showing up, which it is. All right, so next I need temperature. That's going to be var temp cell. Append or text. Actually HTML, because I'm using an HTML entity for the degrees, aren't I? I am. Can't use HTML entities when you use .text, so I just need to attach the number first. So forecast entry .main.temp, I believe. .main.temp. Yep. Oh, but that needs to be rounded. I'm gonna parseInt. No, not parseInt. Number or math.floor. No, math.round. Should do the trick. It helps to add the temp cell. There we go. Beautiful day in San Diego. Next up, humidity. Var humidity humid cell. Another TD. This time I'll use .text. I just realized it's not very safe to use .html given that I am passing it to math.round. So never mind. It's perfectly safe. And that's going to be forecast entry .main.humidity plus space %. Humid cell. Test that one. South Lake Tahoe. See how that's going. Great. Okay. Last but not least, I've got wind. Var. Oops, up a line. Wind cell equals TD dot. This one's got to be HTML again, I think. Dot append. Do a span. HTML, grab wind. So it's entry dot wind dot speed, forecast entry dot wind dot speed plus space mph, followed by a br tag, followed by direction, and then another HTML entity for degrees. And we're almost there. Forecast entry dot wind dot, I think is it dir or direction? It's degree, neither. Format the code and drop it in down here. Wind cell. Okay. So we got 4. Yep. Create an image. Append all that in a tr. Yes. Yes. Try it out. Hey, I think that's it. Job's done. Delete these comments. This is kind of a big mess to look at, though. What do I want to do about that? I could make a separate function for each cell. That could clean things up a bit more. But this stream's gone on long enough, so I think I'm going to stop right there, to be honest. Just one thing remains. Got to go purge all the unnecessary HTML in the forecast body. So don't need any of the placeholder anymore. All right. And yeah, I got to go get rid of those console logs. Yuck. There. Console logs are out. So what are a couple of enhancements I would make if you wanted to keep going with this? Yeah, the adjustment for the time zone offset, which you actually have in the data, would be one nice touch. Another touch could be, let me think, a nice fade in or some kind of transition effect for when the table gets rendered. And then maybe even a scroll to effect if somebody's viewing this on a smartphone. That might be a nice touch too, is once the data is received, scroll to the beginning of the table. I think that's about it. That's all I would suggest. Yeah, the time zone thing's kind of a big one. Or at the very least, including some kind of note saying all times are in local time for the client or something on those lines, so that people know that if they're looking at the weather in Germany and they are in Los Angeles, it's not going to be that hot in the middle of the night in Germany when they get there. But that's a look at how you can use the forecast endpoint with OpenWeather API and also make use of the icons, the weather icons that are available through that API as well. So I hope you found this useful. If you hung in for the whole thing, thank you so much for sticking around.